So we finished up with all of our live streaming and presentations and stuff with E3, and everything is kind of rolling along. We're getting a lot of interviews coming out. We're seeing Treehouse happening right now, which they keep showing off tons of games, which is just really, really cool. I just got done watching Tales of Mana. They were showing a lot of gameplay for it, and I think it looks pretty good. Very faithful to what I was just playing last night with Collection of Mana. However, the Wall Street Journal actually put out an interesting article and information that I still treat as a rumor, obviously, because we haven't really heard too much outside of what they are saying. However, what they are saying is actually lining up with a lot of other rumors and stuff going around right now, kind of in the background. But I don't think it's hard to believe with what they're saying here that it's actually happening. And it has to do with those Switch revisions. Now, we talk about them here and there. I think at this point we're waiting for Nintendo to make an announcement, if they will, that there is at least one coming this year, although the Wall Street Journal is still doubling down on two. A lot of these news places are doubling down on multiple SKUs being announced, and I'm still unsure about that. I have a strong feeling that a cheaper model is coming. I think that's like the most obvious thing is the 3DS is going away. The 3DS filled the need of the bottom part, right? Like the cheaper model, the bottom end of the market there for people who want to buy like a cheaper system for their kids or something come Christmas time. The 2DS still exists and the 2DS XL exists, but it's certainly slowing down and there's really not a lot of games coming out anymore for it. And Nintendo even took their predictions for it and moved them down, their projections to like 1 million for the entire like fiscal year or something crazy. Not a lot. So what has happened here is Wall Street Journal has reported that Nintendo is actually moving some Switch production out of China, which has to do with mounting U.S. tariffs and everything. I don't personally care too much about all of that on this channel. There are other channels I'm sure people can discuss all of that. I'm more interested in what's going on with Nintendo and their supply chain, because that appears to be where the Wall Street Journal is getting this information from. Now, they of course have it kind of locked and everything, but other outlets have also reported on it, where they are shifting production to Southeast Asia. And because of this, the Wall Street Journal has also been able to gather information from a source who's familiar with production, manufacturing. Most likely it's somebody who is either managing it or planning it or working alongside of the factories or anything when it comes to this. And what they are saying is that two Switch models are being produced alongside, I guess, the current one. So they're technically working on 3 right now, which if they shift the production over, then they would have 3. That makes sense, I guess. You never know. They could eventually discontinue the one they have currently and then just replace it with the newer one. And that's like the same $300 model. They've just refreshed it and moved on from the older one. Similar to what they did with like the 3DS XL to the new 3DS XL. The old 3DS XL eventually just went away. They just stopped making it. I mean, you don't even buy regular 3DS systems in stores anymore, So eventually those go away. And I could see the Switch as we know it now, the regular one, the first generation one, eventually being similar, where it gets eventually phased out. So, but what's interesting about this is they mentioned that production is set to start like now. Like soon, like it's about to happen. And I was wondering about that. I said, okay, well, if production's about to start soon, according to the Wall Street Journal, basically as soon as they move it over, the factory is just going to start producing these things. They would have to consider at that point to announce them. But Nintendo is very much on board with the idea of announce a system like a month and a half out from when it releases, so they don't hurt the sales of their current system. They don't want to do what Microsoft did with the Scorpio, where they announced it a year and a half out, and it hurt Xbox One sales. It did. It really did. So I understand why Nintendo would be doing this, where they would wait till, okay, so let's say it's coming out in August, right? Let's say like later August, they're going to drop a Switch Mini, right? Like, that's the handheld variant. It's $200, which I think is the right price, $199.9. Let's say they do that. They would probably announce it, I would say, probably end of June, mid-July, early July, something like that. And I guess that would be next week, the week after, if they're going to do it. I mean, the Wall Street Journal here with Takashi Machizuki is thinking they're going to be doing it fairly soon. And they say one is set to look similar to the current model with beefed up components, while the other is expected to be a less expensive model with a new look. And if they have someone on the, we'll say on the inside, probably managing the line at the factory, they probably would know what's going into these things and, you know, how they're coming out of the line, right? So one is set to look similar to the current model with beefed up components. I'm curious how much more beefed up they are, and if this is a more expensive one or one that's going to stay at 300. I think we all understand that the cheaper one's probably going to look like a Vita, for example, and be $200. That would be the ideal price point, I think, for Nintendo. I think they like the little one being at the, you know, all the far left for marketing purposes. I think that makes sense. $199.9. So the question now is, if they are doing production now, how long would it actually be? Well, if you remember a long time ago, I mean, we're talking a long time ago, years ago. Do you remember that Foxconn leak that we had that mentioned, it mentioned the Switch itself? And they had a lot of stuff very, very right. They had the correct battery size in the Joy-Cons correct. They had the battery size in the Switch correct. They were definitely there. They knew the exact weight of the Joy-Con. They knew the weight of the Switch. They were definitely there at some point. Maybe they didn't see everything correctly, but they had to have been there if they had that kind of... That was way too specific. They mentioned that their factory... This is like a very old Reddit post. They mentioned that the factory that they were working in was able to produce 2,100 units per day, like the line that they're on, and then the whole factory can produce 20,000 units per day. Now, of course, this might be split up between like a mini and like the regular Switch and, you know, the whatever the Switch revision, the Switch Pro, I guess everyone calls it. That would be split up, I guess, between all of them. So at that point, you have to kind of figure out, okay, well, if they do it 5 days a week, maybe they do 7, I don't know, over there, who knows. But let's just say 5 days a week. I mean, at that point, they're making 100,000 units per week if they push the factory like that to get it done, which, I mean, at that point, would they be ready to go with 500,000 units? Maybe. I mean, that might be enough. It depends on how much they want to stock, and if that's the only place that they're working on them, because there could be other factories that they're also working on, because they did mention that some of production is moving, not all of it, it seemed. So they could be working on it elsewhere and working to produce more units outside of that. So I wonder if this is either a fall release or a holiday release. But the fact that they are, again, according to Wall Street Journal, we'll say rumor, producing these things, that means that they are ready to at least announce that there is a Switch revision, because the reason they would want to announce is they would also want to start marketing and then release. So there's a lot of stuff there to do. Remember, they've done this before. The 3DS, I believe the new 3DS XL was announced and then launched like a month or so later. We've seen it with the DS Lite, the DSi, the DSi XL. They always do this. So to hear about this isn't surprising, but I wouldn't take it straight up as actually happening until we have Nintendo announce it. But interesting stuff there nonetheless. Let me know what you guys think about this down below with these Switch revisions apparently entering production. It's interesting to hear that we could see them soonish or announcement soonish. They wanted to avoid E3, it seemed, so maybe I guess the earliest would be next week that they could do it. But I'm going to say they probably won't at least make us aware of them until like early to mid-July. That's just my assumption. So we have I think another month before we'll even hear about them. But Nintendo surprised us before, so I guess you never know. But let me know, guys, down below. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not. Make sure you're subscribed as we go through E3 with all kinds of other gaming news coming out. And I'll see you guys next time.